She was born in a small home where mornings started early and silence mattered more than laughter. In that house, rules came before feelings. Adults decided what was best, and children followed without question. From the time she could reach the keys, the piano waited for her every day. It stood in the corner of the room, dark and heavy, like it was watching her, while other children ran outside. She sat on a hard bench with her feet not even touching the floor. At first, she did not understand why she had to play. She did not ask for music lessons. No one explained much. She was simply told that this was her path. Practice started slowly, but it did not stay that way. Soon, hours were added. Mistakes were noticed. Fingers were corrected. The sound of wrong notes filled the room, followed by deep sighs from the adults nearby. Each wrong note felt like a small failure. She tried to enjoy it. Sometimes she liked how the keys felt under her fingers. Sometimes a melody sounded nice, but joy never stayed long. It was always followed by pressure. If she played well, it was expected. If she played poorly, it was questioned. There was no space to feel proud. There was no room to say she was tired. The piano was not a choice. It was a duty. As the years passed, her hands grew stronger. Her fingers moved faster. She learned pieces that others struggled with. Visitors would come and ask her to play. They smiled and praised her. They said she was gifted, but they did not see the tears she wiped away when no one was looking. They did not hear the quiet wish in her heart to stop. School days were no different. After classes ended, she did not join friends. She went straight home. While others talked about games and shows, she talked about scales and practice time. Her life felt narrow. Music filled every corner, leaving no space for anything else. Even sleep felt rushed. There were moments when she wanted to speak up. She thought about saying she did not want this life. But fear always stopped her. She did not want to disappoint anyone. She did not want to be seen as ungrateful. So she stayed quiet and did what was expected. The piano became a place where emotions stayed hidden. She learned to play without feeling. She focused on being perfect. That was safer. Feeling too much made mistakes more painful. So she trained herself to be calm, controlled, and distant. People thought she was serious by nature. They did not know she was protecting herself. As she entered her teenage years, the pressure increased. Competitions were mentioned. Higher goals were set. Practice times grew longer. The music became harder. Her body followed, but her heart fell further behind. She felt like she was living someone else's dream. Sometimes late at night, when the house was quiet, she sat alone at the piano. She did not play the assigned pieces. She pressed random keys softly, just to hear how they sounded together. In those moments, she felt something different. Not pressure, not fear, just sound. But those moments were short. Guilt always followed. She told herself she was wasting time. She began to feel tired in a way sleep could not fix. Her shoulders hurt. Her wrists ached. More than that, her mind felt heavy. Music surrounded her, yet she felt empty. The thing that brought others joy had taken something from her. Adults continued to talk about her future. They spoke proudly, as if everything was already decided. She listened quietly, nodding when needed. Inside, she felt trapped. She could play beautifully, but she did not feel free. There was no single moment when she decided she had enough. It built slowly, like water filling a glass. Each forced practice, each silent tear, each ignored feeling added more. She started counting the days, not to an event, but to an unknown escape. By the time she became an adult, the piano no longer felt like music. It felt like a wall, strong, cold, and always there. She had learned discipline. She had learned skill. But she had not learned happiness. People often say that talent is a gift. For her, it felt like a weight she had been carrying since childhood. A weight she never asked for, and one she did not know how to put down. This was the beginning of her story. Not a story of love for music, but a story of survival. A story shaped by force, silence, and endurance. And though no one around her realized it yet, a quiet breaking point was coming. Years passed, and the girl who had been forced into music grew into a young woman. The piano was still there in her home, untouched for hours, days, even weeks. She no longer wanted to sit at it. She no longer wanted to hear the notes. The memories of pressure and endless expectations were too heavy. She wanted space to breathe, to think, to live a life that felt like her own. At first, leaving the piano felt like a relief. She walked outside more, laughed with friends, and explored small pleasures that had been forbidden or ignored in her childhood. For the first time, she chose what she wanted. She studied simple things, like cooking, walking in the park, and spending time with people who did not expect perfection from her. She felt free, almost like a bird released from a cage. The piano was in the corner, dusty and silent, but it no longer commanded her life. Her family noticed. They asked questions. Why was she ignoring her gift? Why did she no longer practice or perform? They reminded her of the hours she had spent learning, of the competitions, of the opportunities she had been given. She listened, nodded, but she did not explain. She knew she had no words to make them understand that for her, freedom was more valuable than talent. Outside, the world seemed larger than she had imagined. Other people her age dreamed freely, made mistakes, laughed loudly, and did things without fear of judgment. She watched them, sometimes with envy, sometimes with a quiet joy. She learned that happiness did not need scales, notes, or applause. It came in small moments: a walk under the sun, a meal shared with friends, a simple joke that made her laugh. She found work that required nothing more than effort and honesty. She did not need to perform, impress, or compete. She felt useful in ways that did not make her heart heavy. The days were long, but at night she could rest without tension. She began to understand that life could exist beyond the piano, beyond the skill that had once defined her. Slowly, she started to let go of the person she had been forced to be. Even so, music did not disappear completely. Sometimes she heard a melody from a passing car, from a distant school, or from a radio. She listened quietly, not for practice, not for perfection, but just to feel the sound. It was strange and comforting. It reminded her of herself, but not the part that had been demanded of others. It reminded her of the part that was still hers, private and safe. Her friends noticed the change in her. She was calmer, softer, more present. She laughed without worry, spoke without fear, and even smiled more naturally. She had learned to live without pressure. She had learned that life could exist without constant evaluation. She had learned that it was okay to be ordinary in some ways, and that ordinary could feel extraordinary yet. Even in freedom, shadows of the past remained. Sometimes, when she closed her eyes at night, she could hear the old voice of authority, reminding her to practice, to perfect, to excel. Sometimes she felt guilt for leaving the piano behind. It had been part of her for so long that abandoning it felt like a betrayal, both to herself and to those who had pushed her. But these moments were fleeting. She reminded herself that she had survived. She had endured. She had the right to choose. She tried to ignore the piano completely, at least in public. She walked past it without touching the keys, keeping herself busy with work, friends, and simple hobbies. The piano remained a silent witness, a relic of a past life. It waited patiently, unnoticed but present, like an old friend who had been hurt and still cared. Sometimes she imagined what it would be like to play again, but she quickly pushed the thought away. It was dangerous, she feared. Dangerous to feel, dangerous to remember, dangerous to give control back to the thing that once controlled her. Her life took a quiet rhythm. Days flowed into nights and months into years. She grew stronger in ways she had never been before. She learned to trust herself, to make choices without fear, and to enjoy moments without expectation. She discovered small joys she had never known existed. The taste of food, the warmth of sunlight, the sound of laughter each became a part of her healing. She realized that happiness was not a reward for talent, but a right for living. People she met did not know her past. They did not know about the piano that once ruled her life. They did not know about the hours of tears, the pressure, the fear, or the hidden skill she carried quietly inside. She liked it that way. It allowed her to be herself, unjudged and free. She could be ordinary, and she could be extraordinary in silence. That silence was her sanctuary. Occasionally, wondered what would have happened if she had continued to play, if she had obeyed the demands, if she had followed the path that had been set for her. She wondered if she would have been famous, if she would have been celebrated, if she would have felt proud. But each time she considered it, she realized that the cost would have been too high. The price of perfection was too heavy for her soul. She began to understand something important. Talent is not always a blessing. Sometimes it can be a chain. Sometimes it can be a prison. And sometimes the only way to survive it is to walk away, to find life outside its expectations, and to discover what makes the heart truly alive. She was learning slowly that the piano had not taken everything from her. The skills she had built, the discipline she had learned, and the patience she had developed were hers forever. They were gifts she could carry silently, unseen and untouched by pressure. She did not have to perform or compete to honor them. She could keep them quietly and let them become part of her own story, not someone else's vision. For now she was content. She walked freely, laughed openly, and lived deliberately. She was ordinary in the eyes of the world, but extraordinary in her survival. And though the piano still waited in the corner of her home, she did not fear it anymore. She had claimed herself, and that was more important than any performance. Any applause or any forced success. The years of forced practice had shaped her, yes, but they had not broken her. They had not stolen her ability to choose, to feel, and to live. In walking away, she had discovered strength she never knew she had. In leaving behind the piano, she had begun to find her own voice, one that was soft, quiet, and entirely her own. And that voice, she realized, is the beginning of something new. Life eventually led her back to music, but not in the way she had imagined. The piano had been left behind, yet somehow it called to her quietly, in moments she did not expect. A friend asked her to help their child learn piano. She was hesitant at first. Teaching had never been her dream. She had wanted to run away from music, not return. But she needed the work, and it was a simple task. Show the basics, guide a child, and help them enjoy the music without pressure. At the beginning, teaching felt strange. She stood beside the piano, guiding small fingers, explaining simple notes. It was different from the harsh lessons of her past. She smiled at mistakes, laughed at awkward rhythms, and encouraged children to explore sound. It felt light and easy. Yet, inside, a shadow of old fear lingered. She had seen too much pressure and disappointment to fully relax. Music was still connected to tension, still a reminder of years of forced practice and expectation. Her students liked her. They responded to her patience and gentle guidance. Parents appreciated her careful teaching, even if they did not notice her hidden skill. She kept herself controlled, never playing more than she needed, never showing the depth of her talent. It was safer that way. She could teach without fear, without bringing herself into the spotlight. This was her way of coping, her way of keeping the past at bay. Some days were harder than others. Children would struggle with pieces she knew easily, and memories of her own childhood practice would resurface. She remembered hours of repetition, endless corrections, and the heavy weight of expectation. Those memories made her tense, but she reminded herself not to pass that pressure on. She wanted her students to enjoy music, not fear it. She wanted them to feel free, even if she had once felt trapped. Teaching slowly became routine. She developed methods, little tricks to help students learn without fear. She encouraged creativity, allowed mistakes, and praised effort rather than perfection. She found joy in their small successes. Seeing a child play a simple melody without stress brought a quiet satisfaction she had not expected. She began to feel a small spark of connection to music, a spark that was hers and hers alone. Even with this, she kept her own playing hidden. She never played more than necessary. She did not perform. She did not practice, and she did not share her skill. Inside, she felt a tension, a quiet battle between wanting to play and fearing what it would bring. She had learned that talent could be dangerous, if shown too openly. People expected too much, judged too quickly, and the piano had been her enemy for so long that trust was hard to rebuild. Her students noticed her skill sometimes. They would watch her hands move across the keys and marvel at the smoothness, at the ease. Parents complimented her on her ability to demonstrate, but she never played a full piece, never revealed the depth of what she could do. She had learned to hide herself, to protect herself, and to survive quietly. The piano could remain part of her life, but only on her terms. Outside the lessons, life continued quietly. She lived simply, enjoyed small pleasures, and maintained the freedom she had fought for. The piano teaching was part of life now, but it did not consume her. She had boundaries. She had control. And most importantly, she had choice. That choice, she realized, was more valuable than any applause or recognition. Her confidence grew slowly. She began to realize that teaching was not just about the children, it was about her, too. She could reconnect with music without fear. She could enjoy it in small doses, on her own terms. Each day, her connection with the piano softened. It was no longer a weight but a tool, a way to express, to guide, and to create. She was discovering that her love for music could exist quietly, safely, and meaningfully. Still, fear lingered. Deep inside, a part of her remembered the years of being forced, the long hours, the harsh corrections. She worried about losing control, about showing too much, about being judged again. She kept herself distant, careful not to let emotions take over. The piano was part of her life now, but she was not willing to let it dominate her heart every now and then. She would play for herself after the lessons, quietly and softly. Just small melodies, fragments of music she remembered. She did not perform. She did not share. She played because it brought a small peace, a quiet reminder of her skill. It was private, and that privacy made it safe. The piano was no longer a master, but a companion, waiting patiently as she reconnected on her own terms. She began to notice subtle changes in herself. Her patience grew. Her joy in music returned, slowly and carefully. She could feel the thrill of creating sound without pressure, the beauty of harmony without expectation. The piano became a friend again, not a taskmaster. The fear was still there sometimes, a quiet echo of the past. But it was no longer the voice that controlled her life. Teaching became more than work. It became a quiet journey of rediscovery. She learned to enjoy watching young students struggle, grow, and succeed. She learned that music could be gentle, playful, and free. And in watching them, she found pieces of herself, pieces of the young girl who had loved sound before pressure had ruined it. She began to believe that music could be joy, not punishment, and that her relationship with the piano could change. Even after so many difficult years, life moved forward, steady and quiet. She kept herself private, but the piano became a bridge, a way to reconnect with her past without being controlled by it. The skill she had developed as a child was still there, hidden but alive, waiting for a moment when she could fully express it again. Teaching allowed her to keep it alive, to nurture it safely, and to rebuild trust with the instrument she had once feared. For the first time, she felt hope. Not hope for fame, not hope for approval, not hope for applause, but hope for herself. Hope that the piano could be part of her life without taking her freedom. Hope that her past, while difficult, had given her strength. Hope that she could reconnect with music on her own terms, slowly, gently, and carefully. This hope, small but steady, became her guide as she continued her quiet journey back to the piano. The day came unexpectedly. The small school where she taught organized a performance for children. It's a simple recital to show parents the progress their children had made. She had helped her students practice, guided them gently, and reassured them that mistakes were okay. It was meant to be a light event, nothing serious, but as always, life has a way of surprising even the calmest hearts. The recital began smoothly. Children came to the stage, shy but proud. The audience clapped for their efforts, and the room filled with laughter and small applause. She watched from the side, quietly encouraging, smiling, and offering gentle nods. Everything seemed normal until one of her students froze halfway through a piece. Panic flashed in the child's eyes, and the music stopped. A hush fell over the audience. Some parents shifted nervously, unsure what to do. The child could not continue, and for a moment the stage seemed impossibly large and empty. She felt her heart tighten. She had seen fear before, but this was different. It was small, fragile, and entirely innocent. She could not let this moment break the child's confidence. Without thinking, she moved to the piano. Her fingers touched the keys lightly at first, unsure, almost timid. But then something shifted inside her. Years of hidden skill, years of waiting quietly rose to the surface. Her hands moved with a memory and precision that surprised even herself. The notes flowed naturally, perfectly, and effortlessly. She began to play, guiding the child through the piece. Filling the room with music that was both powerful and gentle, the audience fell silent. No one expected this. Parents and teachers alike were captivated, not just by the skill, but by the emotion, the depth, the feeling that poured from each note. It was as if the piano had been waiting for this moment all along, holding its voice for her release. Her fingers danced across the keys, bringing life to the music in a way that commanded attention without demanding it. The child, reassured, continued to play, following her lead. Together, they completed the piece, notes weaving together seamlessly. A perfect collaboration between teacher and student. The room erupted in applause once the final note faded. Parents were stunned, whispers spreading quickly about the talent they had never seen. Some were speechless, some had tears in their eyes. The quiet piano teacher had become the center of attention in an instant. For her, it was overwhelming. She had not intended to show this side of herself. She had not planned to reveal the depth of her skill, to step into the spotlight. Yet, the music had taken over, carried her, and guided her hands naturally. She realized in that moment that her talent was not just a burden. It was a force that could bring joy, healing, connection. As the recital ended, people came to her, amazed and curious. They asked how she could play so beautifully, so effortlessly. They wanted to know about her past, her training, her story. She smiled quietly, careful not to overshare. She did not want to lose control again. She did not want the pressure that once consumed her. Yet, she felt a quiet pride, a validation of the years of discipline and practice that had been part of her life long before she had chosen this path. The moment stayed with her long after the applause faded. That night, she sat alone at the piano, letting her hands remember the feel of freedom and mastery together. She realized that she had been hiding for too long, and yet, revealing herself brought not fear, but a strange peace. Music, she understood now, could be a companion, not a master. It could guide, heal, and connect, without demanding her life. Her students, too, were changed by the experience. The child who had frozen now smiled with pride, feeling the support of someone who understood. Other children watched in awe, realizing that music could be both serious and joyful. Disciplined, yet expressive. They learned that mistakes were not the end, but an opportunity. And she became more than a teacher. They saw her as a guide, a mentor, someone who had experienced both struggle and triumph. The school staff noticed a change as well. They began to ask her to play for other events, small recitals, and gatherings. Invitations slowly increased. People were curious, intrigued by the quiet teacher who had surprised them all. Yet she approached this carefully, keeping boundaries, ensuring that each step was comfortable and chosen. She had learned the hard way that talent could be dangerous if mismanaged. This time, she was in control. Word of her performance spread quietly at first, then more broadly. Parents spoke among themselves, friends shared stories, and the community slowly began to recognize her not just as a teacher, but as someone with rare skill. She was no longer invisible, but the attention did not overwhelm her. She had prepared herself for moments like this, though she never expected they would come in such a simple way. She understood that her life could include music fully, but only on terms she chose. This day became a turning point. She realized that her past, the years of forced practice, the pain and pressure, had not destroyed her, it had shaped her. The discipline, the patience, the skill, and the resilience she had developed were not just tools, they were her foundation. They had prepared her to shine in moments she never anticipated, and to help others find courage along the way as she reflected on the event. She began to understand another truth. Music was not just for performance or recognition. It was a way to connect, to express, to guide, and to heal. She had spent years hiding from it, fearing its power, fearing its expectations, but now she saw that the same power could be a source of joy, confidence, and inspiration. She had discovered that her relationship with music could be balanced, healthy, and fulfilling. From that day, she approached teaching with a renewed sense of purpose. She continued to help children, but she allowed herself moments of play, creativity, and expression. She occasionally played for herself, for small audiences, or during lessons to inspire students. Each time, she felt the thrill of freedom, the joy of creation, and the quiet validation of her skill. She had learned to embrace both her past and present, to use her experience for good, to cherish the talent that once felt like a burden. This moment at the recital remained with her forever. It was proof that her talent could be a gift, that it could be shared without fear, and that it could inspire others. She had transformed the fear, pressure, and pain of her childhood into something beautiful and meaningful. She had shown herself that she could be both private and powerful, cautious yet free. The piano, once a source of pressure and expectation, had become a partner, a guide, and a friend. And in this partnership, she found a new sense of identity, a teacher, a musician, and a woman who had survived force, rediscovered joy, and quietly shocked everyone with her hidden brilliance. After the recital, her life slowly began to change. People in the community started noticing her skill, not just as a teacher, but as someone with extraordinary talent. Invitations came for her to play at small events, and some parents even suggested that she should perform for a wider audience. At first, she hesitated. Fame had never been her goal, and the thought of performing publicly again brought a mixture of excitement and fear. She remembered the pressure of her childhood, the constant expectations, and the feeling of being trapped by the piano. But she also remembered the moment during the recital when she had played freely, without fear, and how good it had felt. That memory gave her courage. She decided to approach these opportunities carefully. She would play only when she felt ready, only in spaces where she could be herself. She began performing at small gatherings, local events, and private occasions. Each performance was a reminder that her talent was not just for others to judge or admire, it was a way to express herself, to connect with people, and to share a piece of her soul. She discovered that the joy of playing could coexist with her freedom. She could control the music rather than being controlled by it. As she continued, her reputation grew quietly. People were drawn not just to her skill, but to the warmth and emotion she put into every note. She played with a depth that came from lived experience, from years of struggle, and from finally embracing her own voice. Audiences were moved by her performances, not just because she was talented, but because she played with honesty and feeling. She realized that the years of being forced to play had given her something unique, the ability to communicate emotion through music in a way few could. With recognition came new challenges. People began asking her to perform more frequently, and offers to teach more students increased. She had to set boundaries carefully, ensuring that she did not fall back into the old pattern of pressure and overwork. She balanced her teaching, her performances, and her personal life thoughtfully. She had learned the hard way that talent without control could be dangerous. But now, she could manage it wisely. Teaching also evolved. She shared her experiences with students, helping them understand that music should be a source of joy, not fear. She encouraged them to explore, make mistakes, and find their own voice. Her guidance was not just about technique, but about understanding the emotional side of music. Students were inspired by her story. Many began to see music differently, not as a burden, but as a gift to enjoy and share. She became more than a teacher. She became a mentor, a guide, and a source of inspiration. Her personal relationship with the piano transformed as well. She no longer saw it as a master or a taskmaster. It had become a companion, a friend that responded to her touch and reflected her feelings. She played for herself more often, experimenting with melodies, creating her own music, and exploring new styles. Each note was a reminder of how far she had come from a child forced to practice to a woman who could play freely and fully. Music became a source of healing, creativity, and peace. She also learned to embrace her past. The years of pressure and forced practice, which had once felt unbearable, were now part of her story. They had given her discipline, patience, and an understanding of music that few could match. She realized that her struggles had shaped her into the person she had become, a person who could balance skill with freedom, discipline with joy, and teaching with personal expression. Her past was no longer a burden. It was a foundation for the future she was creating. Public recognition grew slowly. Videos of her performances were shared, and people began to reach out to her for advice, inspiration, and guidance. She was careful about what she shared, keeping her life private while allowing her music to speak for her. She discovered that fame could be gentle, manageable, and meaningful if approached wisely. It was no longer a source of fear, but an opportunity to connect and inspire. She began receiving invitations to larger events, including community concerts and charity functions. Each invitation was carefully considered. She chose to participate in ways that felt authentic, avoiding situations where pressure or expectation could take over. Her performances were honest, heartfelt, and unique. People were drawn to the emotion she conveyed, and many were moved to tears by the depth of feeling in her music. She realized that true success was not measured by applause or recognition, but by the ability to touch others through her art. Through all this, she never lost sight of her personal life. She maintained a balance between work, teaching, performances, and personal time. She enjoyed simple pleasures, spent time with close friends, and explored interests beyond music. She understood that life was about more than talent or recognition. It was about living fully, making choices, and embracing freedom. Music was a part of that life, but it did not dominate it. Her journey also inspired others in unexpected ways. Former students, parents, and colleagues admired her resilience and dedication. They saw how someone could overcome pressure, fear, and expectation to find their own path. She became a quiet symbol of strength, showing that it was possible to embrace talent while maintaining personal freedom and balance. Her story reminded people that success could be measured in inner peace and joy. It's not just public recognition. Over time, she began composing her own music. The pieces were gentle, emotional, and reflective of her journey. She experimented with melodies that told stories without words, music that captured feelings she had carried for years. Composing became another form of expression, a way to share her experiences and emotions safely. It was deeply personal, yet it connected with others who listened. Her music spoke of struggle, survival, and ultimately freedom. She also discovered the joy of collaboration. Occasionally, she worked with other musicians, sharing ideas and creating new sounds together. These experiences were enriching, allowing her to explore new perspectives while maintaining her own voice. Collaboration reminded her that music was not only personal, it was a way to connect, to communicate, and to inspire others. She found fulfillment in both teaching and performing, understanding that both could coexist harmoniously. Through all this, she maintained humility. She never sought fame for its own sake, nor did she allow recognition to define her. She understood that her journey was unique, shaped by force, struggle, and ultimately choice. She remained grounded, remembering the child who had once sat at the piano reluctantly, and the young woman who had walked away to find freedom. That memory kept her connected to her roots, reminding her that every step, even the painful ones, had led to this moment. In time, her story became well known within her community. People admired not just her talent, but her resilience, her courage, and her ability to transform adversity into strength. She was invited to speak at schools, events, and gatherings. Sharing her journey and inspiring others to follow their own paths, her message was clear: talent alone is not enough. Freedom, choice, and joy are equally important. Her life became a testament to the power of balance, resilience, and self-discovery. She never forgot the lessons of her childhood. She remembered the pressure, the endless practice, and the fear that once dominated her life. But she also remembered the moment she first played freely at the recital. The joy of rediscovering music and the quiet satisfaction of teaching and guiding others. These memories became her guide, helping her navigate fame, recognition, and success without losing herself. Her life became a story of transformation from force to fame, from fear to freedom, from pressure to joy. She had faced the weight of expectation, endured years of discipline without choice, and emerged stronger, wiser, and more compassionate. Her music became an extension of her journey, a way to share her experiences, emotions, and wisdom with the world. She had learned that true success was not just skill, but balance, fulfillment, and the ability to inspire others through authenticity. As she continued to perform, teach, and compose, she embraced her role fully. She remained a mentor, a guide, and a source of inspiration, showing others that it was possible to overcome adversity, reclaim freedom, and transform talent into something meaningful. Her journey from force to fame was complete, not just in public recognition, but in personal fulfillment. She had found her voice, her freedom, and her purpose. Ultimately, she realized that the piano, once a symbol of pressure and expectation, had become a source of joy, expression, and connection. It had been a teacher in more ways than one, guiding her through struggle, resilience, and growth. She had learned to play not because she was forced, but because she chose to. And in that choice, she discovered true freedom, quiet fame, and lasting fulfillment. After gaining quiet recognition, her journey continued in ways she had never anticipated. She found herself invited to larger gatherings and community events, where more people came to witness her play. Each invitation brought excitement mixed with a small wave of fear, a reminder of the years when music had been a source of pressure rather than joy. Yet, she was determined to approach each opportunity carefully, holding on to the lessons she had learned about balance, boundaries, and the importance of personal choice. Her performances became more confident over time. With each audience, she discovered new ways to express emotion and connect with listeners. She no longer felt the need to prove herself, nor did she fear judgment. Instead, she focused on the music itself, letting it tell the story of her journey. People were moved not only by her technical skill, but by the authenticity she brought to every note. She realized that her past struggles had shaped a depth of understanding and expression that few others could match. Teaching also grew in significance. She began mentoring not only children, but also young adults who sought guidance in music. She emphasized creativity, self-expression, and emotional connection over perfection. Her students learned to find their own voice, to embrace mistakes as part of learning, and to discover the joy in music. Parents noticed the change in their children and in her teaching approach, appreciating the care and encouragement she offered. Through mentoring, she felt a deep sense of fulfillment, seeing others gain confidence and develop a love for music in ways that mirrored her own journey. During this period, she began experimenting with composing original music. Each piece became a reflection of her emotions and experiences. She found freedom in creating melodies that spoke her truth, capturing moments of struggle, hope, and triumph. Composing allowed her to explore music beyond the limitations of structured lessons or traditional pieces, giving her a sense of control and expression she had never felt in her childhood. Her compositions were eventually shared with her students, local communities, and small audiences, where they were received with quiet admiration and respect. Her personal relationship with music evolved in unexpected ways. She played for herself, not out of duty or expectation, but for the simple pleasure of sound. Long hours at the piano no longer felt like a burden, but like a conversation with a friend. She could explore, experiment, and play spontaneously without fear. These private moments of joy reminded her of the small freedoms she had fought so hard to claim. Music became a source of peace, a sanctuary where she could reflect and recharge. Her past experiences also gave her a deep empathy for others. She connected with students and colleagues who struggled with pressure, self-doubt, or fear. She could offer guidance not only in music but in life, helping them navigate challenges with patience and understanding. Her own story of overcoming forced expectations resonated with many, creating trust and inspiration. She discovered that her journey could serve a greater purpose beyond personal fulfillment. It could guide, uplift, and empower others. Despite growing recognition, she remained humble and intentional about her choices. She did not seek fame for validation, nor did she let success change who she was. She maintained a careful balance between public performance, teaching, composing, and personal life. She enjoyed simple pleasures, like walking in the park, spending time with friends, and reading quietly at home. These moments reminded her of the importance of living fully outside of music, ensuring that her talents enhanced life rather than controlling it. One day, a local school invited her to speak about her journey from childhood pressure to rediscovering music as joy. She shared her story openly, describing the challenges of forced practice, the struggle to find her own voice, and the transformation that came with choice and self-discovery. The students listened intently, inspired by her honesty and courage. Many realized that talent alone was not enough. Resilience, self-awareness, and the ability to embrace joy were equally important. Her words left a lasting impression, demonstrating that true growth comes from understanding oneself and learning to navigate life's challenges with grace. Her performances continued to touch audiences deeply. People were drawn not only to her technical skill, but to the stories her music told. Each note seemed to carry emotion, experience, and truth, creating a connection that went beyond sound. She noticed that even those who could not play or understand music fully were moved by the feeling conveyed. She began to understand that music was more than notes. It was a language of the heart. It's capable of expressing what words often could not. As her influence grew, she became a quiet source of inspiration in her community. She helped organize small concerts, workshops, and events for students and amateur musicians. She encouraged collaboration, creativity, and shared learning, fostering a sense of community around music. These initiatives allowed her to give back, to create opportunities for others, and to share the lessons she had learned about perseverance, freedom, and self-expression. Throughout this journey, she remained reflective. She often thought about her childhood, the forced practices, and the pressures that had once defined her. She acknowledged the pain and struggle, understanding that it had shaped her resilience and discipline. But she also recognized the importance of choice, the power of rediscovering joy, and the strength of embracing one's own path. Her reflections reminded her that life is a balance of challenges, growth, and freedom, and that each stage contributes to the person she had become. She also began writing about her experiences, documenting her journey with honesty and depth. Her writings explored the relationship between talent, pressure, and personal growth, offering insight and encouragement to others who faced similar struggles. Through writing, she found another outlet for expression, sharing wisdom and emotion in a form that complemented her music. These reflections became a companion to her performances, teaching, and compositions, creating a holistic approach to sharing her story. Her connection with students and audiences deepened over time. She noticed that people were inspired not only by her music but by her journey. They admired her ability to overcome fear, reclaim freedom, and transform adversity into strength. She became a role model, demonstrating that talent paired with resilience, self-awareness, and intentional living could lead to fulfillment and influence. Her story resonated widely. It's quietly proving that even forced beginnings could evolve into meaningful, chosen paths. Even as her recognition grew, she remained grounded. She knew that the essence of her journey was not fame, applause, or external validation, but the quiet satisfaction of living authentically, expressing herself fully, and helping others along the way. She continued to play, teach, and compose with purpose, embracing both the power and the peace that music brought. Each performance, lesson, and composition reflected her journey from pressure to freedom, fear to confidence, and survival to fulfillment. Over the years, she built a life of balance and meaning. She combined personal happiness, creative expression, and mentorship in a way that honored her past while embracing the present. Music became a tool for connection, healing, and inspiration. And she learned to navigate the responsibilities and opportunities it brought without losing herself. Her story became one of resilience, growth, and transformation, offering hope and guidance to those who encountered her music, teaching, or words. In the end, she understood that her journey had come full circle. The piano, once a symbol of fear and obligation, had become a companion, a medium of expression, and a bridge to others. She had transformed her experience of force into a life of purpose, choice, and quiet fame. Her music, teaching, and compositions reflected the depth of her journey, touching lives and inspiring hearts. She had learned that true success was not measured by recognition alone, but by the ability to live authentically, create freely, and guide others with compassion. Her life continued with a rhythm of balance, growth, and fulfillment. She remained a teacher, mentor, and musician, always mindful of the lessons learned from her past. The story of her journey from force to fame became an enduring testament to resilience, choice, and the transformative power of music. She had discovered that the most profound achievement was not mastery alone, but the ability to turn struggle into strength, fear into freedom, and talent into a life of meaning.